Hello and welcome to another episode of Cards Unbarred. My name's Ryan, and in this video I'm going to teach you the 2 to 5 player card game Grunlings Fantastic Fruit, designed by Patrick Wall and Stephen McLaughlin. The components in Grunlings Fantastic Fruit consists of 5 player baskets, 5 player aid cards, 26 Grunling cards, 5 Darkling cards, 18 base action cards, and 3 different sets, which include the Apple, Beach, and Berry set, 11 effect cards, and lastly, the game comes with 1 Sloth token, 1 Grape Award token, and 30 Leaf tokens. The components you will see in this video are from a pre-production copy, so the final version may look a little bit different. Be sure to check the Kickstarter and/or Board Game Geek page to see all of the final information. One specific difference that you will see throughout this video is the action cards. I have Sharpied an A on top of it, but the final version will have a blue background with a star on it, as you can see on the screen now. Depending on your player count, you will remove some of the components back to the box. In this video, I'll be setting up for a 3-player game, so we will remove 2 of the player baskets, 2 of the player aid cards, and we only need 2 out of the 3 sets. In this video, we'll be using the Beach and Berry set, so we will return the Apple set back to the box. Please refer to the rulebook to determine how many sets you would use based on your player count. To set up for the game, first give each player a basket, a player aid card, and 3 leaf tokens. Then place the remaining leaf tokens, Grape Award token, and Sloth token nearby within reach of all players. Next, locate the nature effect cards, shuffle them together, and place them off to the side for now. The next thing we want to do is create the starting player hands, as well as the action shop row and the large deck. To create the player hands, first locate all action cards from the base game set, which have a sapling icon on them, as well as any action cards from the sets that you're using in your game. In this video, we're using the Berry and Beach set, so we're only going to take the 1 action card from the Berry set and add it to the base game set. As a reminder, the action cards you'll be seeing through this video have the same back but with a Sharpied on A, whereas in the final version, the action cards will have a blue background and a star on the back to make them a little bit more noticeable. We will then combine all these action cards together, shuffle the deck, and deal 1 action card to each player. Place the rest of the action cards aside for now. Then take all non-action cards from the base game set as well as the sets you are using in your game, and shuffle those together and deal 6 cards to each player. This means each player will have a starting hand of 6 non-action cards and 1 action card. Then place the rest of the non-action cards near the middle of the table for now, as we will be forming the large deck shortly. Going back to the action cards that we set aside earlier, reveal the top 6 cards to create the action shop row. The use of this row will be explained later in the video. For now, take the rest of the action cards that were not dealt to players or the action shop row and add them to the non-action cards, shuffle all of these cards together, and form the large deck. Place that in the middle of the table and reveal the top 2 cards from the top of the deck. In a 2-player game, there will only be 1 card face up for 1 discard pile. And lastly, we want to put the nature effect cards in the large deck. In a game of Grunlings, there will only ever be 4 effect cards that are placed in the large deck. To set this up, take the top 4 cards from the shuffled effect cards that you did earlier during setup, and place the remaining ones near the box. Some of the effects may interact with the leftover ones, so don't return them back to the box completely. Either way, take the top 5 cards from the large deck, and then take 1 of the nature effect cards, placing it with those 5 cards from the top of the deck, shuffle them together, and place them at the bottom of where the large deck was before. Then take the 3 effect cards, shuffling them in with the large deck, and place this large deck on top of the now 6 cards at the bottom of the deck. So to recap that, there are 4 nature effect cards that are in this deck. 3 of them are randomly shuffled into the large portion of the deck, and 1 of them is shuffled within the bottom 5 cards that came from the deck. The effect cards are sort of the timer to the game, so when the last one gets drawn, that's going to trigger the end of the game. So the 4th effect card should always be one of the bottom 6 cards, but it is unknown to players where exactly that it is. So again, we'll place the large deck on top of that. And the final step for setup is to have all players simultaneously select either 1 or 2 non-action cards from their hand to place into their basket. Players may freely look at the cards in their hand and or basket at all times, but make sure to keep them hidden from other players unless an effect says otherwise. And now that we're all set up, players are ready to begin the gameplay. The game starts with choosing a start player, and that is suggested to be the person who ate fruit most recently, otherwise select a random player. When it is a player's turn, they will perform 4 steps: actions, basket, cards, and discard. The first 2 steps, actions and basket, are optional, but cards and discard are mandatory. Play will continue with players performing these 4 actions, with potential effect actions occurring, until the 4th and final effect card is drawn, in which case they will go to final scoring. And now that we know the general flow of the game, let's look deeper into a player's turn. The first step of a player's turn is to perform any actions. At the beginning of the game, all players are dealt 1 action card. So let's say the pink player over here is going first. Looking at their hand, they are dealt a single action card, the Hungry Birds, in which case they could choose to play this card now. Whenever you play action cards, you will always reveal the card, resolve the effect as much as you can, and then place it on one of the 2 discard piles. If you have multiple actions, you can perform as many as you like, but you must resolve 1 action before going to the next one. In this video, I'm not going to explain every action as they occur, since the rules do give a detailed explanation on how all of the actions work. But once a player has performed any actions that they wish to perform, the next step that they perform is the basket step. This allows players to pick up, swap, or store any cards in their basket. As I mentioned earlier, players are always allowed to look at the cards that they have placed in their basket, but only during the basket step are you actually allowed to change any cards that are currently in there. Right now, the pink player has a watermelon card. Looking at their hand, maybe they want to add a second watermelon card in there, which they will do now. And in future turns, they could potentially grab both these back, placing them in their hand, and putting 2 other cards in there however they want to. They could even just pick a card back up to go back to 1 card in their basket. You are only ever allowed to have 2 cards in your basket. As you can see, the baskets fit 2 cards perfectly. You are not allowed to stack cards on top of it to have more than 2. You are, of course, allowed to have less than 2. You can have 0 or 1 if you wanted to. After you have completed the basket step, you will then go to the card step. The card step has 2 parts. The first part is taking the top card from the large deck and revealing it face up to all players so that they know what card this is. You will then add that card to your hand and then perform the second part of this step. This one has 2 choices for a player. The first choice is to draw a top card from the large deck, keeping it face down, hidden from all other players, or by taking a card from one of the 2 discard piles as long as it is not an action card. So in this case, if it was the pink player's turn right now, they could pick up the strawberry, but not the Hungry Birds. If you, of course, only have action cards on top of the discard piles, then you would only be able to choose the option of drawing a card face down from the large deck. If at any point when you are performing the action step or the card step, you reveal a nature effect card from the deck, you must immediately reveal the effect and perform it, and then immediately go to your discard step. The discard step is where all players must discard their hand and or basket down to 10 cards. You will check all of the cards in your hand as well as your basket, and if you have more than 10 cards, you must discard down to 10. At this point, you are not allowed to discard any Darkling cards that are in your hand. So in this case, if the pink player had a Darkling in their hand and had more than 10, they must discard non-Darkling cards. You discard 1 card at a time, placing it on either discard pile until you have reached 10 cards at that time. You are able to stop discarding cards. You can, however, spend leaf tokens to discard dark shrubs. There are a couple other things that you can do with leaf tokens. I will explain those a little bit later in the video. Otherwise, once a player has completed the discard step, it then goes to the next player who will perform those 4 steps in order actions, baskets, cards, and discard until, again, we have drawn the fourth and final effect card from the deck, in which case the game will immediately end. So just to show one more turn a little bit more in detail, we're going to have this player take their turn. Looking at their hand, they have the Grape Connoisseur action card, which they will play. This allows them to declare a player that will have the most grapes at the end of the game. You will then put this card next to that player, so maybe they'll say, this player down here is going to have the most grapes, and they will take the grape token in front of them to give them a reminder at the end of the game to check to see if they were correct. This will be worth some amount of points at the end of the game if they are correct. That is the only action card in their hand. They are done with the actions phase. They will then go to the baskets. They will look at their two basket cards, pineapple and raspberries. Looking at their hand, maybe they want to keep two berries down there. So they're going to put one of the berries down and take the pineapple back into their hand. They now go to the card step. They will draw the first card up top, revealing it face up and showing it to all players, which is a Darkling. They will add that to their hand, and now they can either take one of the two non-action cards from the top of a discard pile, or secretly draw this card into their hand. Of course, players at this point would know it's an action card they'd be drawing, but they wouldn't know which action it is specifically. But let's say they want to draw this strawberry to have another berry in their hand. We then proceed to the discard step, which, counting their cards, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is not more than 10, so they do not need to discard any cards, and then we would proceed to the next player. When an effect card is drawn from the top of the deck, players will read the bottom part of the card and immediately perform whatever effects that have taken place. Some effect cards will take place until the next effect card is played, some will change endgame scoring, and others will cause something to immediately happen. Please refer to the rulebook for how each effect works in detail. Once an effect is completed, place it nearby for all players to see how many effect cards have triggered throughout the game. As a reminder, there are only 4 effect cards in the deck, and the 4th one will trigger the end of the game. Some effect cards have an or final effect. These only take place when they are the 4th and final effect card revealed. If it is revealed and it has an or final effect, you will ignore all text that precedes that section of the card. After the 4th and final effect card is revealed and triggered, all players should calculate their subtotals. Please keep in mind any nature effect cards that may impact final scoring. Once players have reached their subtotals, all players should announce what those totals are. Then add score tokens as well as any Grape Connoisseur token if that player correctly predicted who the Grape Connoisseur would be. Then keep in mind for the Bitter Lemon cards and how that would interact with scoring. And after all scores have been totaled, the player with the highest score wins. At any point on a player's turn, before an effect card is ever drawn, they may spend leaf tokens to perform one of the following 3 actions. The first one is discarding any card from hand. This can include Darklings, which otherwise cannot normally be discarded through the discard step. You spend 1 leaf token per card you would discard. The other action you can perform can only be done once per turn, but you may spend a leaf token to buy one of the action cards from the action shop. You may perform the action immediately, or you may hold the card for a future turn. If you hold it for a future turn, the turn in which you buy the card, you may go over your hand limit. However, it is only that one turn in which you buy the card can you go over your hand limit. The third and final action you can perform is a hand reset. The cost for this requires 2 leaf tokens or 3 leaf tokens if there are 3 revealed effect cards. After paying the cost, to complete the hand reset, you may look at the top 5 cards of both discard piles, and then choose one of the discard piles. You may not look beyond the first 5 cards until finally selecting a discard pile. Then you may freely go through the entire discard pile and take up to 4 non-action cards from it. You will secretly take those 4 non-action cards, making sure to keep them hidden from the other players, and then return the rest of the pile to the table and shuffle it, and then add the cards you've taken to your hand. And then finally discard any cards of your choice from your hand, and you may go below the total card limit of 10 at that time. Otherwise, that's everything you need to know to play Grunlings Fantastic Fruits. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching!